Welcome to Baseball Biz. I'm here to thank all of you all, at least the guys from the Better Business Bureau Baseball Writing Association, for giving me this award for excellence in broadcasting. Thank you.
Welcome to Baseball Biz. I'm Mark Herbert, your host, and with me is my co-host, Mr. Brandon No Way. How you doing today, Brandon?
I'm doing really good, Mark. How about you?
I am doing so great, man. You know, it's a great time to celebrate Tim Kurkjian, that writer and sportscaster, that wizard of all things baseball. He's been amazing for years, and it is so nice to know that now the Better Business Bureau, the Baseball Writers Association of America has decided to bestow upon him a Hall of Fame Career Excellence Award, which seems, survival alone, I think, should count.
Yeah, he's done a really good job, and even though I don't agree with him on everything, he is one of the better reporters in MLB, and hopefully this will give him a little bit more respect around ESPN, and they'll give him a little like a stepping stool to stand on when he's doing a live shot or something, because the poor guy deserves a little bit more respect.
Yeah, I love seeing him, when he's out there in the interview and say, maybe a Tyler Glasnow or somebody like that.
It's like, hey there, Tyler, can you bend down just a little bit there? I want to talk to you, man.
He gets so much grief, that poor fella. It seems like when he's up there with his fellow sportscasters, they're always making some sort of crack about his height. But, he deals with it pretty well. Congratulations, Mr. Kurkjian. We can only aspire to such greatness as you. All right. So, anything going on in baseball? Well, no. Doors were closed. Yeah. Doors were closed about a week ago. And we thank none other than Mr. Manfred from that. Went knocking on the door and found that we were locked out. By I mean baseball players and the MLB are not talking right now. This is it, man. This is been 26 years since the last CBA collective bargaining agreement between Major League Baseball and the Major League Baseball Players Association. And conversations evidently were getting nowhere. Manfred said, guess what? If they're not going to get anywhere, we're just going to lock everybody out. That means nobody's coming in for training. There's no conversations going on between teams and their players, front office. None of that's happening. So, bam, here we go. You got to make a decision, guys. Something's got to happen. I look at this. What's that old axiom? When the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem looks like a nail.
It's something like that. I've heard some saying about a hammer, but I don't remember exactly what it was.
I tell you what, though, it's amazing when something seems so important in a matter of life. This really isn't. But when you live baseball, it kind of gets there. And I'm thinking, well, I wake up and I'm just kind of moseying through the room, turn the TV on, C-SPAN's on, God knows why. And yeah, they're finishing voting on something there in the House of Representatives. And I see the breaking down of who voted aye and who voted nay. And between both parties, I see on each column, there's a zero, or rather there's a zero in column A for the Democrats. And then in column B, there's a zero for the Republicans. Basically, that meant that nobody from either party crossed over and agreed with the other. So the ayes were 100% Democrat and the nays were 100% Republican. And I don't know what the legislation was. It really doesn't matter. But the thing of it is, it told me about how some folks are deadlocked in a position to where they're not going to move forward. And, that gets to me. I honestly, I could care less at that particular piece of legislation. I had no idea what it was. But what did get to me is the idea of trying to find a common solution. And compromise doesn't seem to be part of that.
Yeah, and, we saw it firsthand, probably how negotiations are going to go a little over a year ago, actually a year and a half ago at this point, when they were doing the COVID season negotiations, how they couldn't even decide on that. So how are they, if they can't decide how to do a makeshift season, how in the world are they going to put a CBA together in time for the season coming up this year? Which is 2 months away at this point almost.
Yeah, I don't know. I hear some folks like at David Sampson Gab, nothing personal, saying, well, I think we could probably get through all the way to June before we have to make a decision. I thought, I'm not sure what medications you're on, but it must be rather interesting. He's thinking of having that, there could actually be a limited season. So if he wants to go back to a 2020 season with very limited number of games, yeah, I guess they could do that. But I don't think the fans want that. And I think that's a major point of consideration. And just as I was pointing out that, like in that House of Representatives, where you had two different positions and unilaterally each party was going to stand its ground completely, there is actually a third party in this particular one. You've got your players and you've got the MLB owners. Well, guess what? We are fans and we need to be involved too. Okay. We're not going to be coming in there and saying, oh, we expect you to pay us this for coming to the game, but we need to be considered. I'm thinking about, Rob Manfred and how he was going to address some things.
And before you get into Manfred, can I say something about the fans and their part?
Please do.
And it does include the fans, but it also includes like sports talk shows. And this is probably more concerning than anything else. I get a sense that nobody really cares that they're locked out. Now, we could say it's December, they still have a while to go, and they're saying that we're not going to really know what's going on until, like the Super Bowl when football's out of the way. Because, we got the college bowl season coming up, and when that's wrapped up, we got the NFL playoffs coming up. And in case you live under a rock, those are pretty important things here in America. And that's probably the biggest concerning thing to me. It basically went under the radar. A major sports league in America is going into a lockout, and we don't know if there's going to be a season. And it could surprise me either way. If there's a full season, if there's no season, I wouldn't be shocked. It basically went under the radar that this is going on. And even hearing from baseball fans, they either don't care or they're like, okay, this is ridiculous. I'm going to focus on other things.
Well, I hear you. You think of all the sports that we have in front of us right now. All right, here's a consideration, too, that you can add to that. ESPN, they really don't have many rights at all when it comes to baseball. So I don't think it's a sport that they're going to really do a whole lot of coverage on. And even when I'm looking across YouTube and other media, I'm doing a search, say, like within the last week for information on this, I will see something around December 1st and 2nd, but after that, there has been nothing, or virtually nothing out there. Because guess what? We're not talking about it anymore. There was some initial response to very niche, if you will, verticals, people who were talking about baseball. But beyond that, in the general sports world, no. And even baseball fans, they're not looking at this right now. One, because like you said, they're not being made aware of it. And two, it's like, hey, it's a business. Sort it out, guys.
And even like during the summer, which has less competition, for me, there is more competition. I could easily fill my summer because, I'm a fan of racing. I can watch NASCAR, IndyCar, F1. I can watch that all summer and be perfectly fine. So, there is competition during the summer. It's not as steep as it is, in the springtime or even in the fall when you're in the World Series time.
Well, I agree with you wholeheartedly. And I don't know, Brandon, I'm glad we're here to talk about it. Hopefully it makes a little bit of a dent in saying, hey, guys, don't forget about the fans. As players are coming up through arbitration in the early years of their contracts with the ownership, there's arbitration. And arbitration quite often says, okay, here's what we think. The agent says, here's what I think the players were. And the team says, okay, here's what we think the players were. But guess what? There's a third party. There's an arbitrator. And wouldn't that be nice in this case if there was an arbitrator who was a fan that had to sit there and bring these two people together, these two organizations, if you will.
Ooh, to be a fly on the wall in negotiations. Imagine that.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Here, let's quickly going to talk what Manfred said and in his letter, which came out around December 1st. Despite the league's best efforts to make a deal with the Players Association, we were unable to extend our 26-year-long history of labor peace and come to an agreement with the MLBPA before the current CBA expired. Therefore, we have been forced to commence a lockout of Major League players effective at 12:01 a.m. Eastern Time on December 2nd. Yes. Come on, man.
They were forced after 7 minutes of intense negotiations.
Yeah, and that's insane. I love it anyway. That was just an excerpt from the letter. And one of the things I like too is he has said in the past that he doesn't like leaks about what's going on with the talks. He thinks it needs to stay inside. But one, he needs to put this letter out there for everybody to read. And it even starts it out with "Dear fans." It's like, come on, Rob. Looking at this and potential implications go far above and beyond the borders of just Major League Baseball. You and I were kind of bouncing back and forth some ideas of what happens on the international scheme with this. What do you think, Brandon? What are you seeing?
Yeah, there's different effects it's having in international leagues. I mean, I've seen a couple players go play international. I know Albert Pujols, he's playing down in the Dominican Republic. He's playing like a winter league down there, and from what he's saying, he's having the time of his life down there. And G-Man Choi, he's playing, I believe, in the Korean League, where he actually pitched for a while. So once again, proves he's a great all-around player, number one in baseball. And also, International Signing Day. Now, it's saying that it's not going to be impacted. It can still happen even though there's a lockout. But we are seeing ripple effects of guys who are, taking their names out of the race of going over to MLB because of this lockout. And most of it's in the Nippon League or the NPB. Like, and looking at guys like Seiya Suzuki, this guy is somebody who's like, he's the top international prospect out there, even though I think he's like 27 or 28. He's not exactly a kid, but he's one of the bigger prospects out there. And he's played 902 games in the Nippon League. He's hitting .315, 182 homers, over 560 RBIs, a .414 on base percentage, 570 slugging, and a 985 OPS. So that's really good. Last season, he had an OPS of 1.069 and 38 homers. And he is an outfielder, but he also has played third base and shortstop. And
what's happened with him right now? I mean, is he looking at staying over there? Is he looking coming here? Can he come over here? What's going on?
It from what I've read, it looks like it's all depending on when they get this lockout done, because the Nippon League, their like training camp, that starts up around the same time as spring training. So he'll want to, of course, they're like a few weeks before he'll want to make the decision, and that's roughly February 1st. But as of right now, he's still posted, he's still in that signing window of signing with a MLB club. And at the moment, due to the lockout, it's frozen. And in case you don't know the rules, a player usually has 30 days to sign with a team. And he was posted November 22nd. So that took 10 days off right there. So now whenever the signing window would open back up, if he doesn't decide he's just going to go back to playing the Japan League, he'll have 20 days to sign. And so far, it looks like he's been targeted by the Yankees, Blue Jays, Mariners, Red Sox, and Giants. And it's speculated that the Padres, Phillies, and Angels are in there as well. And that's according to Bleacher Report. And his stats and the lockout rules, or the signing day rules, came from InsideHook.com.
Wow. I mean, sounds like there's a lot of interest there. And as you're pointing out, though, when things start up over, was it the Nippon League? Is that correct?
Yes.
When things start up there, it's going to be parallel when things start up here as far as spring training, etc. And if you take what Samson was saying and looking as late as June to end the lockout and have a CBA, I mean, there'd be no way he'd be able to select to come over, to the U.S. and play in Major League Baseball.
Yeah, like I said, there's like kind of like a deadline for him. If there's nothing done end of January, then he's probably just gonna say, you know what, I want to play. I'm just gonna go back and try again next year and focus on playing in this league rather than the MLB for 22.
It's interesting, that you're looking at this too, because you say, well, how does that impact even what we have now? I mean, obviously with Suzuki, I think it can deprive a lot of fans here in the U.S. from seeing a very talented player. I mean, anybody who has practically half of the league teams, reaching out to see if they can bring him in, it makes a difference. But we've actually lost talent too. Masahiro Tanaka, who's pitching for the Yankees, man. He outstanding, and lo and behold, suddenly after 2020, he decided to go back to Japan and played for the Golden Eagles.
Yeah, and this offseason, he was expected to exercise his opt-out clause, and he was kind of frustrated with his team in 21, so he was, considering doing that and coming back to MLB. But since this lockout has happened, he's just said he's going to stay in Japan and pitch for the Rakuten Golden Eagles this year.
Wow.
And that's according to calltothepen.com.
Well, that's, this is part of what we're going to see. More and more of this is going to be happening. And talent that we would otherwise have here. The other side of that, too, is, Brandon, I was talking with an agent the other day. Actually, it's Phil Toronto from Agency One Sports Group. And he's, I think, the VP of baseball operations there. But anyway, what we were talking about is there are more and more talented players in the U.S. who are considering a path over either in the Nippon League or the Korean League or elsewhere, and it's not just a matter of saying, okay, my only opportunities of playing baseball are in the United States and in the Major League Baseball organization. So this is the sort of thing, I think, this lockout that could shake out a lot of, good players, maybe some great ones even.
Yeah, and sticking with the pitchers from Call of the Pen, there are two pitchers named Kodai Senga and Tomoyuki Sugano, and I'm sure that's wrong, but I'm trying my best to pronounce it. They're both, looking at their stats, they're regarded as among the best pitchers in the world. And looking at Senga, he has requested to be posted for 4 straight years going into 2020. So it's pretty well known that he wants to come to America and pitch in the majors. But this offseason, he signed a 5-year extension with the Fukuoka SoftBank Hawks. And that does contain an opt-out clause. So, he could maybe just opt out next year if there's no season this year or if it's shortened or whatever. And he will be 30 this offseason. And looking at his career, he's played 9 seasons. He has a 2.69 ERA, 945 innings pitched, a 76-38 record, and a 1.124 WHIP. The average in MLB in 2021 was 1.297. So that's like a great WHIP compared to average pitchers in MLB. And this guy could be even better. Tomoyuki Sugano, he also has an opt-out clause in his contract, but he declined to do it. So he's pretty much going back to the Yomiuri Giants. And he's 31. Last season, he actually did post, and he had interest from the Blue Jays, who made the biggest push, as well as the Padres, Twins, and Yankees. And over his career, he has a 2.39 ERA, a little less than 1,500 innings pitched, 107.56 record, and a 1.029 WHIP. So they're losing out on some really big talent for this season if they don't. Well, they already lost Sugano, it looks like, but Senga as well. They're losing out on some pretty good talent.
Yeah, and you think about this, what's been happening as far as where talent has been gravitating within. I mean, these players, some great players that are recognized internationally. Opportunities could have been here at the U.S. Farm, but the lockout closed doors and conversations with players. This is something that's going to hurt. I mean, these players age each year, so their ability to play at the level they are now, we may never see them come over here if we don't have something put together this year.
Yeah, and of course you got to factor in the adjustment time, and even then they still have, I'd say, a couple to a few years of prime pitch performance left. But I mean, they're losing out on a big marketing opportunity.
Yeah, no doubt. I have to agree with you on that. But, we've talked primarily about what's going on is with a lot of Asian players. And I kind of mentioned some players who are leaving the U.S., but we actually had some that are going to Latin America. And I think you referenced earlier talking about Mr. Pujols. He started out in the Dominican Republic, played here, and sounds like leaving the U.S. might be the best thing for him.
Yeah, of course. I believe he actually is from the Dominican Republic. If not, he's from that area. I know that for sure. But I mean, he sounds like he's having a great time down there. And even though his family wasn't down there with him at first, it does sound like they're eventually going to be down there with him. And, maybe he does end his career down there. I don't know what the interest level is for him returning to MLB from either a club or himself. But, I mean, if he's playing in his home country, having a great time, who's to say that, or who would blame him that he wants to stay down there and end his career there?
I can't imagine. I mean, and see, to me, this reinvigorates a market outside of Major League Baseball. So to me, it gives opportunities to other leagues to advance, because if you have a Pujols on your team, people across the world want to see somebody like that play. They don't think, okay, I just need to go to Major League Baseball, especially if Major League Baseball isn't starting on when they should. I don't know about you, but during COVID, I was watching the KBO, man. I was there saying, what's going on with this Korean baseball? And I want to hear what Eduardo has to say when he calls the game from home. I mean, that's how hungry I was for good baseball, because we didn't have any. People may build alliances outside of Major League Baseball with some things like where Pujols is playing, or even, again, to Korea or Japan.
They could very well, because, I mean, even though it was the only sport on TV, look at what kind of a fan base was built around the Korean Baseball League, even though it didn't really last, as we've seen. It's kind of fizzled out ever since. But there were people watching Korean baseball with teams and players that, for the most part, nobody knew who they were.
Yeah. It's well, we hope that MLB and MLBPA are able to do the kumbaya, looking at some of the basic things I think that have been requested from the Players Association, were things like, looking for the reserve clause, where it takes 6 years of play, 6 full years playing at a major league level before you can go ahead and be a free agent. And they're trying to scale that back to maybe where it's 5 years, a little plus. And that's reasonable. They're also looking at where arbitration would begin a year earlier, where it's normally after 3 years during that 6-year period that you can start to negotiate a slightly better salary. The other thing, let's see. Oh, this one I love, is they talked about reducing the revenue share to the smaller teams. So if you're Pittsburgh and you're not spending much and you're not bringing in much, those folks are paying a lot at the top level. Some of that revenue has come back down to those lower teams. Well, I think what the Players Association's mentality on that is probably that if you don't encourage those teams to spend less, you can actually get players to be paid a little bit more, even at those lower level teams, small market teams.
That could be an interesting thing, because how many of those teams actually spend the revenue sharing instead of just pocketing it? I mean, I have my suspicions of what our owner does, but I mean, we've looked at what these teams make, like their net worths, their profits, like about a year ago, actually, I think. And we looked at that and we saw that these teams are making money. The only team that wasn't was the Marlins. Everybody else was making a pretty decent profit.
Right. It's so these seem reasonable to me, but I was reading looking at Twitter. There's a few players out there saying, let's be reasonable. These are all reasonable requests, but we know that we're not going to get all these right now. So there's something called compromise, I believe, and hopefully they'll figure that out. But that's what the players were proposing. I heard that MLB was also looking at putting some things together. They said, hey, guess what? We're going to increase what we're playing the young players. So I guess maybe if we're looking at 575,000 a year, maybe they're looking at jumping up to 590. But what happens to minor league players is only part of this, okay? That's something that almost needs to be taken care of outside the CBA. So that's really where some money needs to go, but that's not going to be part of this. Oh, here's something MLB said, that they were going to propose, and that's a universal DH. I thought, well, yeah. And I can't imagine the Players Association will be against that because that's 15 more bodies than they would have otherwise out there, in the major leagues.
Yeah, I think that's something everybody should want because I've said it a million times. I don't want to see a pitcher up there pretty much wasting everybody's time, taking up a spot in the lineup for them to basically watch 3 strikes go right by them 95% of the time. That's just not what I want. I want to see somebody up there who's, more competent with the bat.
We don't have a whole lot of Shohei Otanis out there, people. So
no,
you kind of need that universal DH. I know watching the World Series and you'd see Charlie Morton come up there and, the pitcher for the Braves. And it's like, well, Charlie, what you gonna do? Maybe bunt. It's not exciting baseball. And it's kind of like, to me, a wasted position to have a pitcher up there, at the bat. Here's another one as well, because looking again at the reserve period, where it's normally 6 years right now, MLB said with their proposal, well, you know what? We're going to help you guys out. We're going to have free agency not based on years, but on age. So we're going to wait until you're, say, 29. Okay, 29 years old, and you can be a free agent. And sit there and you scratch your head and you say, well, what would happen? Let's see, with Vladdy Jr. What would happen with him? He'd have to be 29 before he can negotiate as a free agent. I don't think that's the way to go. And as players get on the cusp of 30, their value in some ways, I think, can begin to decline. Not all of them, but it can begin to decline. So their best years as far as making money and be able to negotiate can be before 29. I don't know. Thoughts?
I mean, that's good in theory, even though I don't think it should be that way for everybody. I think it should either be 4 to 5 years in, then you're a free agent, or by the time you're 29, whichever one comes first.
I like that.
That's the way I think it should be. Because what if you get somebody like a Bryce Harper who's up here when they're like 19 or 20, and they got to wait 10 years to get paid?
Yeah, no,
because you're losing a lot of money.
Yeah, and they're stuck. So if everything else is wrong with that team, it's not going to be good for baseball. There needs to be some flexibility to move that guy around, or he needs to have the flexibility to move around. Leading up that lockout, though, Brandon, is like a lot of activity. I didn't know if it'd be more on the players' parts or the teams that wanted to get contracts done. And a lot of things cooked up in those last few days. I didn't think they would. I thought it would wait until after the lockout was over. But there were some big ones, big spenders. And, in Texas, everything is big, right?
Yep.
And that certainly proves to be true with the Texas Rangers. I mean, you've seen this. I love this place, the new Globe Life Field out there, where they've got that dome. I think it's like on a track. They can just slowly gear up or out over the field. It's not something you can just roll back like a window shield or whatever. But it's cool, man. It's really neat. The park is beautiful. It's exciting, and it costs $1.2 billion to make that daggone thing. And I guess the Rangers decided they want to have something in there to bring people to come see that great field as well. So they have really taken advantage of this and bringing in some top talent from free agents.
Yeah, they brought in all this talent. It's like you got these guys, but what about everybody else around them? I mean, I know Corey Seager's really good, but who else is there?
Yeah, well, again, they're making a major investment. Corey Seager, 10 years, $325 million. Marcus Semien, bringing him in from Toronto, signing him up for 7 years, $175 million. Whoa. Okay, stop for 1 second. Just that alone, put those two guys together and you're at $500 million, which is $500 million. Oh, okay, that's a large part of what that entire field costs. So that's huge. That's a major investment in talent. They've also brought on, I think, John Gray and Cole Calhoun. So their commitment to excellence or to trying to achieve, I guess, a World Series, the commitment to bringing in that talent is there.
It'll be a fun thing to watch throughout the season, whether it does work and they turn out to be a playoff contender, or if they crash and burn. Either way, it's going to be something to watch.
Yeah, I definitely believe that. So, does our old Ray? We used to have a Tampa Bay Ray guy out there. What was his name? Nate Lowe.
Yes.
I don't know if he's still with them or not. I believe he might be.
I haven't seen anything on him, so I assume that he is.
Yeah, he would still be under control of the team. So it was always fun watching him. Anyway, but I digress. And if we look across some of the other contracts that were signed just before the lockout, other big numbers. I mean, the Mets are really going to it. They brought in, let's see. Oh, yeah, Mr. Max Scherzer, signed this man up, 37 years old, I believe, 3-year contract, $130 million. Way to go, Mr. Max.
Good for him, man. I think with what the Nationals still owe him and other bonuses and incentives, he's going to be raking in about $54 million a year for the next 3 years.
Oh, my gosh.
That's more than what 5 teams are spending at the moment on their entire team. The Mets just spend on one player.
Oh, my gosh. I love it. Oh, let's see. Well, geez. Now they gave up Javi Baez, right? Now he moved off of the Mets. Where's he going to? Is it Detroit? Yeah.
Yes.
I think he's got an 8-year contract with them for $140 million. I didn't see that come. I mean, well, I guess I should have, but I put too much faith in one little news blip that said A.J. Hinch, with the manager for the Detroit Tigers, is having breakfast with an old teammate of his or an old player of his. And we're talking about none other than, Mr. Correa. I said, what? Yeah, Carlos Correa. And things were going so well that Carlos had not just breakfast, but lunch, with A.J. Hinch. Wow, man. That's a pretty good long meal. Maybe the Detroit Tigers are going to get him, but no. It was just before lockout came, and Javi Baez was signing with Detroit for $140 million.
I don't know what to think of this one. I mean, Baez hasn't been the greatest the past couple years. He had his moments during his time with the Mets last year. Most of it wasn't for his production. So big thumbs down there. But I thought Carlos Correa would have been a really, I'm trying to think of a cleaner way to put it. We're a serious contender. We're bringing in Correa, we being the Tigers. We're bringing him in because we think that we have a young team that with time is going to contend. And he could help build the culture that A.J. Hinch wants. Hopefully no trash cans will be involved. He can help build that. And because with all that being said, he is a really good player. You could bring him in. He could teach these guys, he can help them. He can mentor them, all while leading the team in production and being a serious piece, because he's only 27, 28. So he still has quite a few years to go.
Oh, yeah.
And they even have even more money freeing up here in a couple of years, because then Miguel Cabrera's contract is up.
Yeah, man. There's another guy we'll probably see going to another market besides Major League Baseball because of what he's able to do. He seems like a guy who wants to play the game for the rest of his life, Miguel Cabrera. Another thing going with the Tigers, though, that didn't stop them. I mean, they still signed Erod. Oh, wow, pitcher. What was for he was with Boston Red Sox, I believe. And he is now with the Tigers. So 5-year contract with $77 million. Woof.
It's an interesting signing. It seems like it could be a pretty good signing if it does work out. But, I mean, he had a decent year with the Red Sox. Could have been a lot better. But, I mean, looking at him, he had the 4.74 ERA.
Yeah.
The 13-8 record. That definitely could be better, but maybe this is kind of like a scratch my back, I'll scratch yours, where you come here as we build up, you build up as well. So hopefully when it's time to contend, we can go together.
Yeah, I don't have the particulars on that contract. And I got to wonder if there's any opt-outs because along the way, because that type of ERA and that kind of win-loss record, I mean, it's good. You know, it's better than 50-50, but it still leaves something to be desired.
Yeah.
I'm looking here now and say, both of these contracts, I believe, both with Javi and Erod, opt-outs for the 2023 season. So they're hedging their bets. So, and then, another one we'll talk about briefly, and that's Toronto. I knew after seeing a great Toronto team last year, I was curious how it was going to advance this year. I actually anticipated them going further than they did, but surprise, surprise, they didn't. And so who's gone? Marcus Semien, we talked about a moment ago. He's gone to Texas with a 7-year, $175 million. Robbie Ray, he's going to Seattle. A pitcher who's not only he's a great pitcher and likes to wear tight pants, but it's exciting to see the kind of talent he brings on the mound. And let's see, 5-year, $115 million. Who else? Who am I forgetting from Toronto? I know there's somebody else. And shame on me. Oh,
Stroman?
Stroman.
No. He was with the Mets. Never mind.
Yeah, that's right.
He was with the Blue Jays, I believe.
Well, maybe that's where the spackling in my brain is falling off, and I thought maybe there was somebody else there. I'm sure there is, and we'll figure it out later.
The listeners are probably listening to it and like, it's this guy, you idiots.
Yeah, they got that part right. But so lockout time came and left. I mean, I think Marcus Stroman was one of the last players in there. He was getting a 3-year, $71 million with him moving to the Cubs. And the Toronto did pick up Kevin Gausman for 5 years and $110 million. So there's some positive movement toward bringing somebody in Toronto. I'm not sure how that's going to play out in the end. And
losing Robbie Ray, I think that was really disappointing because, you're losing the best pitcher in the American League. He's gone. And Semien, I think, is a blow, but I think it could be a really good bounce back if they bring in Correa. Because, if you have Springer, if he can stay healthy, because he really struggled with that last year, you have those two guys in there with the lineup that they have already.
Yeah.
I think that they could cause some real trouble, especially if they're not bouncing from town to town like they were last year.
Oh, gosh. 3 different home bases in 1 year. Dunedin, Buffalo, and finally home to Toronto. God bless them. That's a tough time. So I admire what they did. They had a great team. And like I said, there's going to be some deficits this year. But like you said, if they bring Correa in there, wow, that would be huge. Now that you bring him up, let's take a look at who's out there still that something hasn't been decided on yet. And let's see what we got. Freddie Freeman. No big surprise there, so I should say. That the big surprise to me was before even the World Series had completed, I thought there'd be some sort of extension, with him, but there hasn't. And there's all kinds of numbers being bandied about when it comes to Freddie. The one thing we know, Atlanta is where his heart is, and I think Atlantans see him as a fixture, for that team. That he's something that they expect to be there for a long time to come, but I wasn't decided before the lockout.
Yeah, I hope he stays in Atlanta because to me, he's Mr. Braves. He wouldn't look right in any other uniform.
Yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. And I don't know where he would go, but I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who say, oh, I'd love to have him for my first base. There's talk about the Dodgers reaching out to him. There's other ones as well, the Yankees. I don't know that any of that's going to happen. But I'm like yourself, I truly hope that he does stay with Atlanta. And there's also Chris Bryant. I love this one because let's face it, I have felt for him ever since I thought Chicago did a dirty deal with him. I feel like they cheated him out of a year of service. You're talking about the 6 years of service it needs. He was brought in just to play, I forget what the exact number of games what it was, but it was one short of completing a full service year for the team. But he's gone on and done well. One document I'm looking at here says the Giants had some preliminary discussions with Bryant. And not sure where he's going to go, though. I don't know.
That could be one to watch too, because there are certainly teams that could use him. I've heard the Mariners. I'm sure the Yankees would throw their hat in there. But he's somebody that I kind of want to watch, see where he goes.
Yeah, I would too. I mean, he's got a little flexibility. He's played both as a third baseman and also in left field. And we were talking about Correa still being out there. Early on, before all of this trading started, before all of these free agents were out there, I think we were looking at a month or two back that there were going to be several shortstops who were going to be free agents. So Correa and also Trevor Story still out there. And there's a man who's also generating a lot of interest. He's said, well, is he going to be with the Rangers? I don't know. I've heard he's a Dallas native. And we'll see what written this article here. It says, but the signings of both Seager and Semien have taken Texas out of play for Story. I don't know. I'm really curious to see where he winds up. Some of the other ones, Kyle Schwarber. There's a guy, with the Red Sox. My gosh. I've had mixed feelings about him. He's played well, but do you have any insights you want to share on Schwarber?
Schwarber, I mean, I don't really know much about where he's going to go. He seemed like he's been like a quiet free agent out there. I did see somewhere, I believe it was when you told me that the Nationals could be interested in him and possibly coming back. So that could be something. Maybe even the Cubs could come back. I don't know, but that's probably not going to happen because you never really go back. But I could maybe see the Red Sox making a push to keep him back as well. I wouldn't blame them.
And that's another situation where I thought, well, surely they already have this talent. They know what he's doing out there. Aren't you going to keep him? And let's see, last year overall, what was he doing as far as at bat? He had 71 RBIs and slugging percentage 554, on base percentage 374. Let's see. Overall, it looks pretty good there.
I'd take him.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens with Mr. Schwarber too. So there's a lot going on. A lot of people were not sure where they're going to land before it's all said and done. Let's see. Raisel Iglesias, right-handed pitcher with the Angels. He's still out there. I think I don't know. There's a lot of names. I'm not going to continue to go down one, but one of them I will say. There's actually two more I will say. Anthony Rizzo with the Yankees. I know I can't stop myself. Anthony Rizzo with the Yankees. Will that continue? They got rid of a couple of guys too. Odor and Clint Frazier. Somebody else the Yankees got rid of. But that doesn't sound like they didn't run up to say, "Come on, Rizzo, stay with us." I thought they probably would, and they may yet. This is some folks say, well, they can move LeMahieu to first base, and then put Rizzo. I don't know, where would they put him after that? Somewhere else in the infield.
DH? Actually, no, he can't DH. Actually, no, he can DH. I think.
DH. Yeah. Going back to our friends at the Atlanta Braves, Soler. My gosh, that was exciting to watch that man in the World Series. Yeah, he's got a lot of interest. I mean, you look at the guys that Anthopoulos brought in late in the year. He brought Adam Duvall back, brought back Soler, he brought back Jock Peterson. So yeah, man, that's a lot of folks. It's a lot going on. So I don't know.
Somebody I want to watch, and if the Braves can't bring back Soler, since he's a right fielder, I would try to bring in Castellanos because I think he's a really good player. He has like a swagger about him, like he just doesn't care what anybody thinks about him. I'd say he could go to the Rays, but he wants like an 8-year deal, so that God knows they ain't spending any money. And the Braves, we saw it last year. They will push their chips in and say we're all in. So I think bringing him in could be really good, especially with Acuna. I don't know when he's coming back, so I think they wouldn't skip a beat if they brought him in.
No.
If that'd be my opinion. I'd love to bring him into my team.
Yeah, I've heard Marlins have some interest in him, but I don't know. We'll see how it all plays out because he would be an exciting player to see out there. A lot of movement, a lot of people going a lot of places, but in the end, we're still waiting, boys and girls. Come on. It's some trades have gone on that I didn't anticipate to as we got closer to lockout just prior to that. And one of them, talking about Rays, former Ray, Hunter Renfroe. Hunter Renfroe. Where did he go? Let's see.
Milwaukee.
Yeah, Milwaukee. So he'll be joining our old friend Willie Adames there. And wow, after the performance he gave in Boston, I was just dumbfounded. You know, we had a gentleman on here from Boston Sports Talk a couple of episodes ago, and he and I were both just singing the accolades of Hunter Renfroe. And no, he's a guy that's going to be there. You know, he's going to be a fixture. Oh gosh. Well, you know, Chaim Bloom proved me wrong once again.
Hey, I mean, I was surprised at first. Like, this guy was arguably your best player last year, and you're going to trade him away. Then I remembered Chaim Bloom's in charge, and he was with the Rays, and they trade everybody when they're their best player. So then it's like, oh, yeah, actually, that's not so surprising.
No, and when you look at it, I mean, Chaim, when he first came in, what's the first thing you do? Okay, yeah, David Price will trade him. He's got a long in the tooth. Oh, and by the way, do you want Mookie Betts? We'll give him Mookie Betts, too. And it's like, whoa. I'm sure that raised up all the beans in Boston with a lot of heat and anger at that day boiling over. I mean, geez and crackers. Chaim woke them up just like Eric Neander woke us up when Longoria was moved out of the Rays game. You think you know what's going to happen, but not necessarily.
That's all part of the fun.
All part of the fun. Okay. Oh, and one more thing. We'll probably do a Rays episode soon, too. And that was Joey Wendell. And you and I talked before last year. We were saying, well, expect to see Willie Adames be traded at some point. And then another guy that they might trade could be Joey Wendell. And both of those guys are close to my heart. I didn't want to see either one of them gone. And yet that's what happened. The good news is for Adames, it's proven to be a great thing for him. He's really shown with the Brewers, and I think he'll continue to. And looking at Wendell, man, he's a professional. I think he'll have his attitude right there, and is a great win for Kim Ang and the Marlins. So, congratulations to them. Sadness here as a Rays fan, but good man will do a good job for him.
Yeah, that really disappointed me. He was one of the better Rays the past few years, and here we go. A year later, my dream infield is gone of having Wendell at third, Franco at short, and Adames at second. Oh, yeah. It's all gone, just like that.
Jeez, I know. I'm going to be curious to see what we do with well, we're not going to go down the Rays tunnel because once I go there, you'll never get me out.
Oh, yeah, there's plenty we can say about them.
Yeah, well, here we are. It's December 8th, and the way I'm looking at it, it's the season of the Grinch. Robert Manfred he's come in, he's stolen all my toys from underneath the tree. I'm just waiting for his heart to grow 3 times larger than it was before. If he can come back and bring Christmas to us with opening the doors from the lockout, and hopefully both sides can come to some kind of agreement.
You say he's a Grinch. I think he's like Eric Cartman when he gets like any sense of authority, whether he's like a hall monitor or a cop, and he's running around, respect my authority. That's what I picture him being.
Oh gosh, yeah. I can see the whole Cartman thing, but do you have any Christmas wishes? I know we're still a little early. You got any things on that we should have on the Christmas gift list?
Well, particularly a baseball season, or at least an eventful negotiations that gives us plenty to talk about, at the very least.
Yeah, I look forward to the time where I can actually see baseball players' images again, when I go to MLB.com.
Yeah, we can't use our faces anymore. We're getting in the spirit.
No, that's right. It has been funny, folks. What I'm referring to, if you haven't noticed, is that on MLB.com, since they said they're locking out, they can no longer use the images of the players from the Players Association. So basically, the MLB network is shut down. And if you want to see some great old games, I was watching a World Series game from 1952. That's great. But if you're looking for anything of content, what's going on, unfortunately, there's not much there. I hope Tim Kurkjian can come and revive all that in the near future. Should we wrap it here?
Yeah, I think we covered everything.
Okay. Well, there's always more to cover, but that's all you're getting today, folks.
We don't want you to get too tired of us.
No. It's been fun. Brandon, welcome back. Well, I want to thank everybody again for joining Brandon and I here again at Baseball Biz. We're glad you spent some time with us. Hope you enjoyed this as much as we have. And please remember to go ahead and reach out to Brandon or I. And Brandon, you're at Twitter?
I am at Sports Splits Pod.
At Sports Splits Pod. And I'm Mark, and you can reach me at the Baseball Biz on Twitter. Love to hear what you have to say. Any suggestions for the show? Anything you'd like for us to cover in the future. Also, you can find our podcast, Baseball Biz, on iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, you name it, we're out there. Thank you all for joining us here on Baseball Biz, and we'll be talking with you again real soon. Special thanks to X-Take RUX for the music rocking forward.
Respect my authority.